Hi guys, welcome back to a new video for Phantasy Star Online-related New Genesis. In today's video, I just want to talk a little bit about the recent NGS headline, and in particular the new M.A.R.S system, which I'm just showing the trailer for in the background here. So the M.A.R.S system is an extra feature that's getting added to NGS sometime in July, and the way it's going to function sounds more or less similar to things we've had in the past in the Phantasy Star series. So the way it comes across as is it's going to be some kind of special ability that you can activate every so often, and think of it as something like a photon blast in PSO, or something like an SUV weapon in Phantasy Star Universe if you played those games, or a Mirage blast in PSP2. So it's an ability that you'll be able to activate every so often that massively increases your character's output. Interestingly with this, as you can see in the trailer here, there is a few different variants of the M.A.R.S system. So there is ones that are focused on melee combat, there are ones that seem to be mainly focused on ranged, and there does seem to be one that possibly uses techniques as well, so I'm guessing they're kind of based around their typical class archetypes. There are also what seems to be, what the game seems to be referring to as overboost mechanics, which is some kind of ability that you seem to be able to use with these M.A.R.S systems, which looks like it's some kind of super ability that will do tons of damage to enemies. So the example it showed in particular was it showed the Ranger one using something that looked like a huge railgun. This to me, I'm actually really excited about the M.A.R.S system. I think it could bring a lot to NGS. I feel that at the moment we've obviously already got the photon blasts, but a lot of the recent quests in NGS, particularly the limited quests, have made photon blasts so easy to get. There are some of the quests that you have now, you are getting photon blasts several times a run because the game just throws blaster sign at you constantly. So because of that, the photon blasts just don't feel special at all. And to be honest, a lot of them, the damage is fine on them, but it's nothing to write home about. I feel that the M.A.R.S system could be a good, almost like a replacement for that. You're still going to be using your photon blasts, but I think that the M.A.R.S system is a good potential replacement for that gives you some kind of super ability. I guess one of the nearest things you could probably liken it to, apart from the SUV weapons in PSU, is probably something like the Dark Blasts that were in PSO2. So some kind of ability that you'll be able to use every so often, and with a pretty long cooldown on it. Now, I am quite excited for these. I think they could change up the combat quite a bit. I'm guessing that these are going to feature quite heavily in future quests, or particularly in things like urgent quests. I'm guessing that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on using these M.A.R.S systems. Whether we have urgent quests where you're constantly using the M.A.R.S system for the entire quest, potentially down the line, similar to how we've got that phase on Darkfall Stallion where you use the cannons for the whole phase. So potentially we could get things like that in the future. For now, I'm just excited to see how much experimentation, how much customization there is with this system. We do know that there are some kind of skill tree for these, which I believe is probably going to influence what kind of weapons your M.A.R.S is outfitted with. So it'll be interesting to see how in-depth that gets and how much you can actually customize it. I'm going to assume that it's maybe just these 3 or 4 that it's shown in the trailer, but hopefully it'd be nice to be proven wrong and have a bit more customization. So that I'm really, really excited about, and I'll probably do an in-depth video on the M.A.R.S system once it actually launches, just so I get more of an idea how it actually plays. And that'll be a similar kind of thing to the old class guides that I used to do for NGS. But yeah, really, really looking forward to the M.A.R.S system. Now, since we're talking about this headline in particular, I should probably cover some other elements of the headline as well, and just talk about how I feel about the current direction of NGS as well. So this in particular is what I want to talk about in the recent headline. So towards the end of the headline, we've got an example of the roadmap. Now, just to preface this, it does say on the roadmap that the schedule is accurate as of the time of broadcast, but is subject to change. So although I am going to criticize this a little bit, there is a potential it may get changed in the future, so just bear that in mind. So what I want to talk about really is what's on the roadmap, and more importantly what isn't. So you can see that through July we've got the PSO2 12th anniversary with limited time quests, trigger quests, a new duel quest, which the duel quest is Venogia from the Lucille quest. So it's essentially like there's a Feto fight again. There's a new rank for Alio Intruders. We get the introduction of the Line Strike game, which if you didn't see previous headlines is the new card game that they're adding to NGS. And we're getting a collab scratch for the Eminence in Shadow. Then from the end of July to September, we're getting new high rank for Alio, so I'm going to assume that's just extra ranks on the Alio combat zones. So again, we are going back to the Alio combat zones, which I get why we're doing it, because we need to keep increasing the levels of the enemies as the game progresses, but it it is a little bit repetitive going back to the same old earlier combat zones. Hopefully they have some decent changes from the previous ranks, but given how the previous ones have been, I'm guessing it's just going to be higher level Starless. We get an expansion to Lucille Exploration and also an expansion to the Nameless City Exploration. If you've played Nameless City, you'll know that a lot of the map is still blocked off, so I'm going to assume that the expansion is going to be opening up some more of that map to make it a bit bigger. So I'm quite excited for that because I actually really enjoy Nameless City. It's just a nice thing to do. It's not particularly taxing. It's just a nice way to sort of relax and spend some time in NGS. So I quite like it, Nameless City personally. Oddly, we're also getting an expansion to Ordinal Tower. Now, Ordinal Tower hasn't been touched in ages, and basically no one does it. Now, with the expansion, that could be interesting. I am interested to see what they actually do with it. Hopefully they make it actually worth running, because one of the problems I've got with NGS at the moment is that there isn't much content in the game that is actually worth doing. You essentially find that most of the time in the game is spent doing either urgent quests or limited time quests. And I guess at the moment, maybe do a daily Lucille run and some Nameless City, and that's more or less it. Everything else is kind of irrelevant. So I'd like to see more things like Ordinal Tower and other pieces of content from previous updates brought into the limelight again and actually made worth running. We're getting an ultra high difficulty party quest, a few limited time quests, and they're also moving Crimson Realm to Aelio. I suspected this might happen because I thought it was really odd that Crimson Realm was confined to M.A.R.S. However, it is very, very easy content, and it does kind of irk me a little bit that that is treated as a content update, because all you're doing is just adding Crimson Realm to an area that already exists. So that is a little disappointing, but I am still glad that the other areas are at least getting Crimson Realm. I just don't think it should be treated as a major update. Obviously, we're getting the M.A.R.S system, which we've already talked about. New cards for Line Strike. Now, if you've looked into this, some cards for Line Strike, it sounds like might be obtainable through battling, but there are also going to be Arx Cash Scratch or Arx Cash packs of cards as well. I am not a big fan of that. I personally would like to see the card game more as just a side game that you don't have to actually put money into, just something you can do, you know, just to spend a bit of time in the game. I really don't want to be spending Arx Cash on this as well. And we're also getting an anime based on a light novel and an anime based on a shonen manga. For October to November, we're getting Halloween, a new high rank for Steer, more limited time quests, more limited time urgent quests. We're getting Steer Crimson Realm, so we're moving it from Aelio to Steer. We're getting a Tector expansion. Now, Tector badly needs an expansion. It needs a lot of work in my opinion at the moment. I'm not a big fan of how Tector plays at the minute, and I think it does need a lot of help. However, given the last few expansions, I'm not holding out much hope, honestly. The fighter and the Ranger and Gunner changes, honestly, I didn't think were that noticeable, honestly. There were a couple of little changes that were decent, but even in comparison to the Bouncer, Saw and Blades overhaul, they were next to nothing, honestly. We're getting a class level cap raise to 95 and a new item lab feature. We're getting another Idla NGS collab, and there is a question mark on there, so I'm assuming it's just a collab hasn't been confirmed, or it could be that it was the Shangri-La one that was announced in the NGS headline. Then in December to January next year, we get the NGS 3.5 anniversary. It says we're getting a new type of high difficulty solo quest, 2 limited time quests, another Nameless City expansion, although oddly this one is limited time, so this one we'll only be able to do for a bit, which seems like a really odd decision, but we need to know a bit more about that. A limited time urgent quest, Tech Arts customization expansion, which is massively overdue. We need a lot more Tech Art customizations, and I personally feel that the existing Tech Art customization is pretty boring, honestly. I would like to see a lot more variety in what you can actually do with the Tech Art customizations. I feel that the existing ones, most of them are just various degrees of do more damage. There's not a whole lot to them. I would like them to sort of vary up a lot more to actually, you know, drastically change how some of the photo arts work. That would be really cool. But so far we haven't really had that. We're getting more cards for Line Strike and a collab with a game from another company. And then spring, we're getting Urgent Quest, Colossal Boss Suppression, the Seal Exploration expansion. I'm going to assume that the Colossal Boss Suppression is maybe the boss that was teased at the end of Chapter 7 story. I won't spoil it in case you haven't done it, but there was a new boss tease at the end of that, so I'm going to assume it's maybe that. The class level raised to 100 and nothing else announced yet. We also got a few silhouettes shown, so there's a silhouette of what looks like Dark Magils, so I'm going to assume that there's some kind of Dark Magils boss. We also get a silhouette of what appears to be Omega Masquerade from PSO2, so I'm guessing that we're going to fight that, which could be the new type of high difficulty solo quest potentially. So yeah, it might be that we're just fighting Omega Masquerade again, which, as cool as it is to see Masquerade back again, I do kind of feel if you want to just grind against Masquerade, you can just do that in PSO2 anyway, so I don't really know how I feel about that, honestly. Now, let's talk about the other element of what I mentioned, so more importantly, what is not on this roadmap. Story. So we've just had, now, NGS story has been quite rightly criticised for the majority of it because it was very slow moving, not a lot happened, and it just didn't really progress anywhere, honestly. However, if you've played the latest chapter, Chapter 7, a lot goes on in that chapter, and it actually made really good strides to make the story actually start to be interesting. And I was really, really looking forward to seeing where the story goes. And now we're not getting any more story content until, well, beyond March next year, which frankly is ludicrous. Now, again, it does say that the schedule is subject to change. They could potentially fit in story somewhere. But usually on these roadmaps, they do usually mention when a story quest is going to be added. So it is odd that there is no story quest here. And it just kind of leaves us hanging in story for, you know, for several months, which is just, I can't get my head around why Sega have decided to do this. I kind of feel that if they were going to do this with story, that we should have waited on the last chapter, because the last chapter built things up really well. And now we're just kind of hanging there for several months waiting for the next part, which I just cannot fathom why Sega have decided to do that personally. Fingers crossed that it is just either an error on the roadmap, or that they're just trying to schedule it in somewhere, and hopefully it does appear in the next couple of months. It's just really odd that it doesn't appear on the roadmap at the moment though, and it is a little bit concerning. The other concern I've got is that, again, we are very heavily focused on limited quests and urgent quests. I get that's kind of what they're doing with NGS, and I think that's how NGS is always going to be, honestly, because it does seem just the way that they do things with this game, which is fine. That if that's the way that they want to run NGS, that is totally fine. But for me personally, and it's going to differ player to player, but for me personally, I don't really enjoy the constant cycle of limited quests, because it makes a lot of the permanent content just not really worth doing. Again, at the moment, really the only permanent content that is worth doing is the Lucille quest once a day for your dailies and the Nameless City. There really isn't much else worth doing that's permanent content. You know, the time extension quest that we got added a while back, I just completely dead already. No one does them. And this is a big problem I've got with NGS, is that we keep getting content added and then it just gets forgotten about immediately and then move on to something else. And I hope that mentality changes, because I want there to be some long-term permanent content that is relevant for extended periods of time. So Nameless City is a chance to do that, because obviously at the moment people are doing the Nameless City because of the Iridim drops. I would like to hope that as new drops get added in, that maybe they update Nameless City to factor in new drops to keep its relevance and keep updating it. But I'm worried that Nameless City is going to end up in the same boat as previous content that's been added that is now just totally forgotten about. So I don't want to be too negative about this, because there are things to be excited about. You know, I am genuinely excited for the M.A.R.S system, and I'm really interested to see how that gets implemented. And I also want to see how they handle things like Omega Masquerade as well. But there are some definite concerns with this roadmap as well. Now, I have seen some people kind of doing posting saying, oh, we're getting level 100 cap, that's going to be the end of NGS. I don't know how I feel about it. If you've played Phantasy Star a long time, you'll know that the level cap being 100 does not necessarily mean that's the end of the game. Yes, the level cap maxed out at 100 in PSO2, but in several other games it's gone far higher than that. So, you know, in PSO, PSU, it was 200. Well, PSU was 200 in Japan anyway. I think the official servers in the West shut down before we got to the level 200 cap. But you know, it's not to say that 100 is definitely the final level cap. It could be that we get an update beyond that increases it further. I don't think we can read too much into it, It is a little concerning that the February to March there is next to nothing listed, but that could just be because it's so far off that they just haven't confirmed anything for sure yet, or don't want to announce anything yet. So I think at the moment all we can kind of do is like watch and wait and just hope that things improve. I'm willing to personally give the game until the M.A.R.S system launches to try it out and see how fun that is. And I'm hoping that we get some updates on the roadmap over the next few months that sort of flesh things out a bit more and give us an idea of exactly what we're getting. Because I feel at the moment this roadmap is concerning a lot of people and is honestly a little bit worrying for people who want the game to stick around, because some people are reading into this and seeing that there's not much towards the end of it and thinking that NGS is going to shut down. Just to clarify, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it is just that Sega haven't confirmed some things for the roadmap yet. But I would like to see this expanded on, and just to put some people's mind at ease. And again, just to bring this up again, I'd also just like to see some more focus on the existing content that we've got to make the permanent content, I think they call it standing content, more relevant, instead of just this constant drip feed of here's a limited quest, here's a limited quest, here's another limited quest, here's an urgent quest. Nothing else is really worth doing. Hopefully that changes, fingers crossed, and hopefully things like the Tector expansion make that class more fun as well. So without rambling on too long, I just wanted to give my overall thoughts of what I thought of the headline and particularly the roadmap, as well as just giving an overview of my impressions of what I think about what we've seen of the M.A.R.S system so far as well. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, or joining as a member. We are an NGS official creator. I do NGS videos every so often, and they are less frequent than some of my other content, but I do still do NGS videos every now and again. I typically do 2 videos a week and 1 stream on a weekend, and you can usually catch me playing things like PSO, PSU. We also play other games like Monster Hunter as well, so feel free to check us out on stream. You can also follow me on X at Section Skylight, and we also have a Discord server that you can join as well if you want to hang out with people who play similar games. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully the roadmap for NGS surprises us all and gives us what we want, and hopefully see you guys in the next one.